Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jessica Philippe. I'm the Member Engagement Librarian at South Central Regional Library Council, and I want to welcome you to this webinar on library accessibility audits, which is supported with Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds allocated to the New York State Library by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. I also want to thank the Finger Lakes Independence Center for partnering with us on this project, as well as the 5 libraries that participated in the audit process and will be featured in today's presentation. So just a couple things before we begin. Closed captioning is available if you click on Show Subtitle under the Live Transcript button on your taskbar. You can type questions and comments in the chat throughout the presentation, and questions will be answered at the end. And if you would like everyone to see your questions and comments, make sure to select that option in the drop-down menu of the chat box. And the webinar today is being recorded, and it will be shared with all registrants along with information about how to request a certificate of attendance. And now I'm pleased to introduce our presenters. We have with us today Lynn Gitlow, who is an assistive technology consultant. We have Jeff Bowles, an advocacy consultant from the Finger Lakes Independence Center. And we also have Kate Hooks, who is a community disability consultant. So I want to thank our presenters for working on this project with us and for being here to tell us more about it. Take it away, Lynn.
Let me make sure, okay, I'm not muted. So I just wanted to say that this is a picture of us visiting one of the libraries. It's a picture of Jeff, Kate, me, and I think Tina from one of the libraries. And Teresa, sorry. So thanks. All right, let me go to the next page here. So we had our introductions. We will talk and a little bit of background about the project. I'll talk a little bit about what is an accessibility audit. Then we'll go over our general findings and discuss different ways to make different recommendations that we made. As Jessica mentioned, here are the information about the 3 of us and the project background. And I just want to really thank the libraries that participated and the people who welcomed us into their libraries. I learned so much about the diversity just among these 5 libraries and the incredible opportunities and services that libraries make available to their communities, recognizing community need. It was just really a privilege and an incredible learning experience to engage in this process. So I thank everybody. We had a blast. So accessibility is quite a large term, and there are all kinds of accessibility audits that one can do. The focus of this grant was on digital accessibility, but as you'll see, digital accessibility is always takes place within an environment. And so you'll see that we had a lot of environmental considerations to look at, as well as strictly digital access. So for example, if the way that you access the digital environment is by going to your library, there's a lot of consideration in the physical and virtual environment that needs to be considered in order to get this digital environment accessible to you. I just put on this page a couple of checklists if one were to look at the ADA accessibility of one's institution, or the site on the bottom of the list is how to check one's website accessibility. When I was doing some research for this project, there were 2 ADA accessibility checklists that I found that were specific for libraries. So I also listed them here if anybody's interested in them. But as you'll see, there's a lot more than just digital access that goes into making the digital environment accessible. So overall, we found, I think for me, the biggest takeaway about all of these accessibility audits that we did were, you don't know what you don't know. So making information about resources, accessibility options, what many of the libraries have, what you can offer is really, really critical. So one of the findings was about making information on your website about accessibility available. And some of the websites did have some pretty significant amounts of accessibility information, but I found them hard to find. And that's just me, but I'm just giving you my experience. I think that to the extent, Jessica and I were just talking about this, but to the extent that that accessibility information can be on the front page and visible is just one step towards making it more accessible to the people who are looking for it. And to really talk about what is available in your library, as well as what you might want to think about before you come to my library. For example, in one of the facilities that we went to, there was a pretty inaccessible bathroom. And it's not the fault of anybody except the structure of the library, but you might want to make that information known to people who might use that in their decision about whether we should come to the library or not. Then making sure that the website accessible is a big hot topic now. And staff, website accessibility is a job in itself. So making sure that one's website is keeping current with accessibility guidelines and regulations is, I think, a full-time job. But we did find that there are some organizations that use artificial intelligence to monitor and update your website on an ongoing basis in order to keep them accessible, and just gave you two recommendations of two organizations that do that and the services that they offer. Again, clear signage, and we'll talk more about that, highlighting, here's where you'll find this, here's where you'll find that. If you have any questions about how to use this, if you need help in getting this or doing this, please ask. We talked about the importance of disability awareness training for staff and partnering maybe with your independent living center for that training, and even getting it in a digital format so that it could be used to onboard new employees. Then all of the computers that we saw use the Microsoft operating system. And within the Microsoft operating system, there are accessibility features that are extremely powerful. The tech person at the Tompkins County Library had a bunch of handouts highlighting and providing information about how to access those features. I think each library has to get permissions. There's different things involved in accessing those features, but they are available. They're very powerful, and knowledge of them and the ability to make them accessible, at least on one computer for users who need them, is something I think that's doable at every library. And the guy from Tompkins County said he would be happy to share his information with you. That it has the Microsoft accessibility features does have a screen reader. There is a free screen reader that I have put a link to here. We recommend that rather than getting specific high-end software like JAWS or Dragon to put on your computers, because those have a very steep learning curve, and many people use them at home. But I think it's just more prudent to be using accessibility features within the operating systems in a public setting. So that was a recommendation we made. And then we'll talk about making sure that computer libraries and the technology are accessible to all users who come there. Okay, so we did talk about different resources that maybe could be purchased for the different libraries. Some might want them, some might not want them. We talked about ergonomic keyboards and mouse setups for patrons, and I've given you some product information there. Some libraries have this stuff already. These are just recommendations. And again, every library is different and has more or less need for these things. There's personal digital magnifiers, which we gave you some recommendations for, and sound amplifiers. And also, we gave you a link to Wonderful Wheelchairs, because that's an organization that recycles durable medical equipment. And if you don't, if you don't have that equipment and would like to have it available for your patrons, Wonderful Wheelchairs can make it available to you. All right. So this is a picture of the Dunton Peterson Memorial Library in Odessa. And we will look into it in more detail. And I'm going to ask my colleagues, Jessica and Jeff, to help with this part of the presentation. So this is the library homepage. And again, here's some place that we might recommend that accessibility information would be right on the homepage. Okay, I'm going to let Jessica and Jeff talk about this now.
So I'm Kate.
I'm sorry, Kate.
You're
oh
fine.
My God, excuse me.
You are fine. I just didn't want Jessica to feel like she had to start talking.
Sorry, Jess.
So I have had multiple sclerosis now for close to 25 years. And I always kind of tried to make a practice in the past of calling places beforehand or checking the website to see if they were going to be accessible to me, both physically. And one of the most important things for me, especially in the past, was knowing if they had an accessible bathroom. So this library was wonderful, welcoming. We had a fantastic time. I loved the staff, but unfortunately for me, the bathroom would have been prohibitive to me going here independently. And the computer access, here's the bathroom as I was talking about. It's just
three pictures of the bathroom.
It was just very tiny. So there was definitely no way someone in a motorized wheelchair or probably even a manual wheelchair would be able to get in. But I think that they are planning to upgrade this library at some point to a larger space, which would be fantastic, because I thought the staff and the resources and the knowledge that they made available through this specific library was excellent. And if you go back to look at the computers, so they had one great computer, but it's not necessarily in a desk that would be easy for patrons with disabilities to access. And it was also just because the space is so tight and the angles are really tight, it would be kind of hard. You'd sort of have to navigate around a larger conference table in order to get to that lovely computer by the window there. And then the other computer was also, I don't know if this is because they're in the process of moving, but there were a lot of boxes that like I never actually physically saw that computer. Someone else took the picture because it was sort of, my vision was occluded by the boxes. So that would have been a little bit of an impediment for me. And then the bathroom we saw.
Yep. So we did.
To chime in, my name is Jeff. I was born with cerebral palsy. I do not use a wheelchair. I'm not gonna take it long. I'm just as what Kate said. Protection basis, I can do them, but they're very, very difficult for me. So the more the spaces open, the better. So.
Yeah. And again, here's an example of, it's not anything that can maybe be rectified at the moment, but an information on the website under accessibility that the bathroom is difficult to use. And then people with disabilities or who need those accommodations that are coming to access your digital resources can make a decision about, can I go here? How do I prepare? Or what am I going to do? And then we did make some recommendations about adjustable computer tables that would fit in that space, hopefully, if that's something that would be helpful for this facility to make their digital environment more accessible. Okay, I'm going to go on. So this is the Groton, a picture of the Groton Public Library. This place had more resources than I ever imagined a library would have. We just had an incredible time visiting this amazing resource. Here's their website, and I believe there was some accessibility information. I can't remember on this website, but again, it's
Not that I found. Lynn.
okay. And I have like little pictures in front of my face, but it would be a handy thing. Okie doke. This is more pictures of the entrance to the library. So I'm going to let you, Kate, I think I got your name right this time.
Yes,
and
you
Jeff,
did.
Yes, talk about these sorts of things. These next couple of slides, please.
Okay, so this was actually one of the computers that I could access because I could fit under that desk, which was lovely. However, it was in kind of the community room of the library. And like Lynn said, this library, more than probably any other library I've ever visited, is just such a important part of the community. They offer more to the local residents than I ever imagined a library could offer in terms of kids programs and teen programs. They have a food pantry there at least once a week. And I was really impressed by their commitment to the community. And it's one of those things where, for me, I would have felt comfortable definitely visiting this library and using the computers, especially if I knew that they had people on staff that could help me, figure out how to use the Microsoft operating systems, or figuring out how I could get maybe, closer to the desks where most of the library or where most of the computers were located. But I just found everybody there so welcoming and committed to helping people that it had a very, I had a very positive experience. And you can keep going if you don't mind. So some of the desks where the actual sort of computer center was of this library, I think were a little bit too low for a power wheelchair to fit under, but that is something I'm incredibly familiar with, especially from going out to restaurants. I don't fit under most tables, so I wasn't surprised. But it would be lovely if maybe they had a larger workspace or a workspace that could accommodate someone that needed a little bit more room. But you can see the that is the children's kind of room over there on the side, which I was able to get through. Jeff pointed out yesterday when we were talking that, you know, for somebody such as himself, the little rug on the floor could be a little bit of a hazard in terms of tripping for people who might have any kind of like mobility impairments. But it's a pretty small space that I think they're making work for the children in the community really well.
Just to chime in real quick, what you can do with that, and it's a real simple thing, is you can get up and tape it down.
On the corners.
Right.
So if you tape it down, then you wouldn't be able to get your foot caught underneath
right.
it. Or your wheelchair.
Right.
I've dragged a few rugs in my day. These were just some pictures of me navigating the space. It was really nice, especially, I believe this was the children's section, but it was really nice that some of the shelving was lower so that I could really see the books on the tops of the shelves. And I know with limited space, that's not always an option in some of the bigger libraries and some of the adult sections of the libraries. But it was very nice that even in my chair, I was able to peruse what was on the shelves. Oh, I think this is just a video, and there is a library cart at the end of this little section. You can see that's my service dog, Gem. She was a very, I don't know if she was the most happy participant in this project, but she was very loyal. She came to every library with us, checked them all out. So just having knowledge that, you know, sometimes the library cart at the end of a kind of hallway might be problematic for somebody in a wheelchair.
Okay, and specifically, there were some concerns that they had at this library in terms of seating for larger patrons. We did already talk about some adjustable height computer desks, and we've provided in the different reports places where one can get those. And then I think this was Kate or Jeff, this was yours, about making the double doors at the entrance, you know, a long-term consideration, that the doors at the entrance would work together because you got trapped in there, I think. Yeah,
and it was kind of hard to, just depending on which way you were going, when you were going out, the doors both opened in an ideal, you know, pushed out towards the outside. So you could get out pretty easily, but on the way in, once the door shut, that you had a kind of limited space to work with if you were going to push the other handicap accessible button. And then once the door swung open, you didn't really have room to go anywhere. You were sort of in the way of the door. But I think if they both open simultaneously, then that could be solved pretty easily, even though I have no idea how to actually do it.
Okay, so this is a picture of the Tompkins County Public Library. Boy, am I glad I live in Tompkins County because I have access to this incredible place, which until we did this visit, I didn't even know half of what they do. But we had a ball here. Such a great resource. Here's an example of, yes, they do have information on their website about services for patrons with disabilities, but it's embedded. And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't able to find it until I did a Google search. So, but there's a lot of great information once you can find it. Also, this little widget on their website is something that makes, that provides patrons who are using the websites with different accessibility options to make the website accessible. And it does, services like that come with the 2 previous links that I put up that have to do with website accessibility. And it's very interesting and it's very cool, and cool that they have it on their website. And again, I'll turn this over to Jeff and Kate to talk about the space.
I've been to this library several other times when I was tutoring a student who was suspended. And I was really happy to discover that they actually have some private study rooms that we could go into. And I really didn't have any trouble navigating the library, probably because it's such a big open space, which really was lovely. And they have lots of different computer options and keyboard options. I'm not sure, I didn't really know what to be looking for regarding the ergonomics or the ergonomic keyboard that Lynn referenced before, but also the room that they have in the back for the digital lab was lovely. And I really enjoyed that the tables were on wheels, I believe, and that I was able to fit under them.
Just again, keep in mind that we do realize that there's only so much you can do while you got the work with, why you have to work with all the people that use wheelchairs and with mobility impairments. So more open space, the better, like space in between your tables, so the more open you can make that, the better it is for people who use wheelchairs and for people with mobility impairments.
So sorry. So
Go
for
ahead.
me, the one thing that has been an impediment to me going to the Tompkins County Library as often as perhaps I otherwise would is the parking. And I don't know, I did not check to see if there's information about that on the website. I was able to park in the handicap spot right adjacent to the library on this visit, which was great. But it's street parking. And I know for me, I have a handicap accessible van with a ramp, and unfortunately, it's not something that I can do street park during the snowy months. So that's something to consider, but I know you guys do have access to a parking garage, and I assume there's handicap parking in there as well.
And there is information on the website about that parking. I took a peek at that. So this was a bathroom, I think in the children's section, that people were concerned about because of the weight of the door and maybe getting a automatic opener or even just messing around with the closer could change that. And I think, Kate, it was you that pointed out that Ithaca Tompkins County Library had the best bathrooms.
Yeah, one of the, it's just pretty, it was funny, it was cute to me that they were recognized for having one of the best handicap accessible bathrooms in Ithaca. I love that.
Just real quickly, not to interrupt time on a lot of times you got stolen to kind of adjust the tension level on those stores.
Right.
So it's just maybe a matter of adjusting the tension level.
Right. Thank you. And here we are going through the maker space of the library, which was just incredible. And okay, this is a picture on the left-hand side of a concern at the Tompkins County Library. It's a self-checkout unit that might not be accessible to somebody in a wheelchair or different patrons, but we did find a more accessible one at another library and have provided some information about that. And on the right-hand side is a picture of some tables. I can't remember exactly where they were, but we did make a recommendation for this library that it gets at least one adjustable big table that can be used throughout the different library spaces to make sure that there are adjustable height tables. Anything else, y'all?
The one thing I was going to say, which I thought was great and probably a privilege for the Tompkins County Library, it's just that there were so many knowledgeable staff. So I felt like if I went in there alone and couldn't find a sign that told me how to apply for a library card or how to access or use one of the printers in the makerspace, I feel like there would have been ample people that could tell me how to access it better. And it just felt very welcoming, much like the Groton Library. So I just felt like there was a really knowledgeable staff, which I greatly appreciated. And I, like I said, I've had MS now for 25 years and I'm really good at asking for help. And that might not be the case for all people with disabilities. I'm really good. I have no problem having people help me if I need to access a book off the top shelf, or if I need to, figure out what the accessible features might be on one of the operating systems. But not all people might be as inclined to ask, which is why having that information available and signage clear throughout these libraries would be so valuable.
Yeah, because I think that that's probably not the general, especially if you don't know that it's available to you.
And just so you know, we're at 1:34, so you're doing great on time.
Oh, good. Okay, so there was another question at this library for a shopping cart for library use, so we provided some information about that. Then the accessible self-checkout system. And also when I was doing research on those self-checkout systems, I guess the new thing, and we were talking about this yesterday, is using mobile apps to check out books, which I'm sure involves a whole system of things, but it's an option. And it was just interesting to know that there's an app for that. And then at least one adjustable height table for the conference and training room. So, yeah. Okay, here's a picture of the Huntington Memorial Library in Oneonta, which I'm gonna let Jeff and Kate talk about. Let's see what the next picture is. Here's their website. And I can't remember if this had accessibility information on it.
Not that I found.
Okay, not that we found anyhow. So again, important information to include on one's website. And I will let Kate and Jeff talk about this facility.
Okay. So for me, when we drove up, I was questioning how I was going to get in because it's this, older, beautiful house, but it doesn't look like the most inviting for somebody in a power wheelchair. But when we drove into the parking lot, there was the handicap spot, and I took a leap of faith and assumed that the handicap spot was also adjacent to the handicap entrance to the library, and I was correct. So just having maybe a little bit more signage. I mean, obviously that's the handicap parking spot, but I don't recall it being clear that that was also the handicap entrance or how to access it. I think we had to push a button for somebody to open that door for us. So it just would have been nice if there even had been like a phone number or something that you could call in case you were trying to get in and you weren't, as I was, with an able-bodied person to help.
Yeah, this library is doing all it can do with what they have to request. I'm on the board with more science for this library. The last thing you want is people making a substance. So accessible parking and accessible entrances should be clearly marked. There should be signs in front of the library pointing to people towards the accessible entrances.
And then when you do go in, if you could go back, Lynn, one slide. So there's an elevator, and my recommendation for the elevator was just that there be, even if you could use like a label maker to put next to the different buttons to explain what was on each floor. And they had it, just because of the unique, older construction of the building, there were a lot of kind of floors and then half floors where you would go up half a flight of stairs to the next level, and explaining just what was on each of those floors would have been helpful for me. And it was interesting because, as we'll see in these further pictures, some of the really most inviting spaces for someone with physical disabilities would have been on some of those higher floors. So this is I believe on the left, that is the main floor. And that was kind of the main computer room for computer access. And it would have been difficult for me to get my chair underneath any of those desks. But then you can see in the picture on the right, that would be a very inviting computer for me to use. But I believe it was on one of the higher floors, maybe in the teen room, if I recall correctly. And then I think the computer on the right was kind of geared more towards kids, which I thought was perfect. And a lot, I mean, as you find in old buildings, it was very tight to navigate, but Jem and I made it through all those doors. And I don't think I broke anything on my way, which was a relief.
Again, libraries can only do so much. What they have to work with is what they have to work with. We get that, but the tighter the space, the more difficult it is person that uses a wheelchair or mobility impairment.
But they did have a really nice, accessible self-checkout station, which I think some of the other libraries were kind of envious of. And then in this room, the conference room, that table was fantastic for access. But I don't mean to be making this more about physical access than digital access. But for me, I guess it's obvious, I can't really access the digital features of a library without being able to, physically navigate. But having staff that knows what those features are that are available on the computers and available in terms of digital access to books as well. I know a lot of the different libraries that we saw had access to Libby. Am I correct? Is that what it was called? Where you could take out books digitally, and that is also really helpful. For me, I can't turn the pages of a book because my hands don't work. So knowing that resources like that are available is super helpful.
Just to emphasize, we really like this great exhibit. This the just we realize that part where the reason as Kate said we're pulling out the physical accessibility is the digital accessibility is gonna be hard for the person to use if they cannot get to it, to access it.
Absolutely. So I think, we've sort of touched on this, but just having the information available on the website and more clear signage within the library, and labels within the elevator, and maybe even labels in that hallway that leads to the elevator would be more welcoming for someone such as myself. And finally, the Watkins Glen Public Library. Lynn, are you going to take it away?
I see I'm muted. I've been talking a lot, but since I was muted, nobody heard my brilliant pearls of wisdom. But you all said them anyway. So yes, here we are. This is a picture of the Watkins Glen Library, which has on its website accessibility. I can't remember, there could be a lot more in there because I think it focused a bit on parking, but there's a lot more that it has. So it could be ramp up that information a bit. And here are some pictures of the entrance to the library. And I don't know, Kate, and Jeff, if there's some things you want to say, or should we just go to the star of the show here?
Yes, we can move on. The
Right.
entrance was great.
So this is a video of Kate's service dog opening the door to the library.
And then the door opens. And she's like, well, where's my treat?
I'm still amazed every time I see her do that. I am still amazed. I know we should train to do it, but I'm still amazed.
Well, I will tell you, just to be transparent, that I work in the school district. I work at the high school. And last time I brought her to the high school, I think she just is getting sick of it because I asked her to nudge the door open there and she just looked at me like, no, I don't really want to today. So she liked the libraries better than the high school, apparently.
And do you all want to talk about this space here? Because you had some comments about the
Computer access.
computer and the keyboard positioning and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so for me it was a little difficult because the keyboards are all mounted beneath that table there, so you have to kind of you have to be able to pull the keyboard out towards you, and it would not fit over my legs while I'm in the power chair. And probably even I used to use a manual chair back in the day as well, and I think it would have been difficult with that also. So just having maybe one computer station where the keyboard wasn't so low. And I did notice even in the back room there that the tables were a little bit low in order to accommodate the power chair.
Right, and I saw the yesterday, and I would say it again yesterday. I can pull out keyboard that's underneath the table, but at times it can be difficult to do, and it's just a process. I would prefer not to go through. So yeah, if you could if the keyboard off from underneath the table is more convenient for just everyone in general.
So at least one more accessible
Workstation.
station.
Right. Oh yeah, well, at least one of my accessible station, right?
So regarding the bathroom, my main suggestion was that someone just put up a sign that says, ask if you need help with the doors, because the doors were a little bit difficult. Unfortunately, that picture is a little blurry, but I think we're trying to point out that opening one and then turning around to get to open the other one was a little difficult. And then Jeff was pointing out some of the challenges associated with the sink here. And as my MS progressed and when I used to be able to walk, I was always highly reliant on balancing on things. And I have knocked a sink off the wall in my earlier years. So just seeing this sink made me kind of nervous, brought back bad memories of when I knocked a sink off the wall. And then Jeff was pointing out something about the open pipe beneath it, that it might be something for people who don't have sensation and are underneath the sink in a wheelchair, that they could burn their skin on if the sink got too hot. But then I think somebody said there was only cold water in the sink, possibly.
Yeah, I learned that from Lynn. She educated me, so it's just a matter of making sure it's taped.
With like plumber's tape.
Tape that. Yeah.
Just to be some
Okay.
insulation.
Yeah.
We also learned in our universal design webinar that anything that's floating, not only could you potentially knock it down, but if you're using a stick for navigating, if you're blind, then you're not really finding objects. And that can be an issue with shelving as well. If it's floating shelving, then you're not going to know that it's there if you're blind.
And I think this was, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is just a goofy picture of a kid's book that we found with a service dog. So Jem is taking the picture looking rapt as she stares at the book. And most of the stacks I could get through pretty easily here. There were some that were a little bit tight, but it's something that I personally would have felt comfortable asking for help doing. I don't know if that would be the case for everyone, but I do know that they also are working with a limited amount of space to be able to, widen any of the paths between the bookshelves.
Okay, and so for some of the recommendations, we talked about the electronic magnifiers. I think they had an older patron group that comes in, and the digital amplifiers, signage for the bathrooms, and making the bathroom more accessible in the long term. Yes, so thank you, everybody who participated in this. We had a blast going to the places, and we are open for questions.
Yeah, we definitely have time for a Q&A. And also, if you're a member of the participating library and you'd like to pop on and say anything, feel free to raise your hand. I saw a lot of comments in the chat from the participating library, so it sounds like they've already taken some of your input to heart and added some things there.
Yeah, and please don't hesitate to reach out. I think I can safely speak for the three of us that we're pretty committed to making any kind of public access better, especially when it comes to institutions as valuable as libraries. So if anybody ever needs help or needs a consultant to weigh in about the accessibility of their library, please don't hesitate.
There's some hands raised. So Teresa, I'll let you turn on your mic.
Oh, okay. I just want to thank you all, Kate, Jeff, Lynn. Your recommendations are super helpful, and we loved having you visit. And any way that we can become more accessible, we want to welcome everyone. So I really appreciate all that you've done and the work that you've put into this. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Lynn and Kate, yes. Ludo, we had fun. We learned a lot. Everyone, every library was welcoming, cooperative, open to suggestions. And as I told Kate and then yesterday, it was a pleasure to work with them on this project, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
That's great. Thank you, Jeff.
And Jennifer, you had your hand raised. I don't know if you want to add anything from TCC.
Yeah, I'd like to also second what Teresa said. It was really very helpful, and it was a fun tour. We enjoyed walking around with you, and it was interesting how you would ask us if we had a certain service, and we did, and then Lynn would say, well, how are people going to know? We're like, oh, right. So because of the tour that we had, we were able to pull together all of our information, and at least we're able to put together something for the website that could lay out what services we do offer. And I think, I also, Teresa and I were just thinking that we could, try to make the menu option easier to locate because it is somewhat hidden. So these are all good recommendations. So thank you.
Great. And I think that, again, that's the biggest thing. There's so much stuff in the libraries, but I think, people are just hesitant to look something when you ask a question, it makes you look something that a lot of people don't want to look like. So then they don't ask. And then you don't know what you don't know. And there's just so much incredible stuff that's available. And so many, all of you seemed like, well, just ask, so you have to let people know that, that's what we're here for. We're not here we're here to help you. So please ask me.
And
to-
Lynn, doesn't that make you feel better? Because when Jennifer put that in the chat, you were saying you didn't think there was any information up on the website, but after you visited, that's when it went up.
I'm
So
happy
you didn't
because
miss anything.
I didn't miss anything, so I'm glad. Because I think people, I have been very much more aware of accessibility features in places because I have to check it for my husband. And so I'm like always looking for them on websites, and some places do it really well and then some places don't. And that already impacts your feeling about the places you go, so it's important stuff.
Yeah, before we get up, then I just want to put in a plug in this physical the show accessibility. It goes to disability awareness. Lynn mentioned it at the beginning. I would highly encourage the 5 libraries we worked with, plus other libraries to have the patrons disability awareness training. And I would also encourage, as the said at the beginning, that we record and pop the trains when new staff come in, that they watch like a 15 to 20 minute YouTube video Zoom presentation on disability awareness.
And we did put a suggestion for that in the report as well. So
yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to mention. There are 5 libraries that have been involved in this project, but there are hundreds of libraries out there in our region alone, over 400. And we have historical societies, and there's just so much need, really. And so I really hope that this can widen out to not only more libraries, but to the historical organizations as well.
Right.
Jessica, are you going to mention Galen Lee's upcoming program next Wednesday for those that are here?
Yes, absolutely. I'll do that. And then I did see one question in the chat from Claire, but I do want to invite everybody to next week's webinar on June 15th. That's on disability, pride, and inclusion in the arts with musician Galen Lee.
And she's going to play music at the end too. She
Yeah.
won the Tiny Desk concert from NPR several years ago and recently scored Macbeth on Broadway this year.
Yeah, she's an excellent musician.
Are you guys having a link for that so people can join?
Yes, I'll add that to the chat right now.
Okay, so yeah, that would be something that I would be interested in. So if you can share, even email me the link, that would be something I would want to check out.
I'll email it to you directly, Jeff.
Yeah, and
Okay,
feel
thank
free.
you.
And feel free to advertise it to your colleagues and everybody within your community, and it's open to the world.
So
Okay,
just,
thanks.
yeah, you're welcome. And just before we close, there was one question from Claire. She said, to the point about outreach, are there any organizations locally or statewide or nationally that would be good for public libraries to talk to in order to advertise services like Libby to people who might not be able to physically make use of the building? Is there anything you're aware of, Lynn or Jeff or Kate?
I'm sorry, that would it be like organizations that could advertise that Libby is available? Is that the question?
Perhaps.
I imagine the independent living centers could do that.
Mhm.
That would be a great thing, you know, because Libby has accessibility features right within it. And just, I think maybe it was at, I can't remember where we had this conversation about, again, not knowing that libraries would send books or, you know, get you books or have Libby. And so maybe I think that the independent living centers would be a great start, and aging organizations, you
Yeah, I was
know.
going to say like the Tompkins County
Um,
Office of the Aging,
Yeah.
maybe even schools, because I know school libraries are an amazing resource as well, but sometimes they're closely tied with the school hours. And sometimes, like I used to teach in Baltimore, and the kids who don't have really good Wi-Fi would need access to their local libraries after school. And I don't know if that's always the same case in the Finger Lakes region, but it would always be, you know, no harm in letting people know. And I know Groton said they had like a newsletter that they distributed through the community, and I'm sure some other ones do as well.
Yeah, Jennifer Zetting, the cancer
Places
resource.
like long, we can do it. The Finger Lakes Independent Center. Before I get up, I want to, and I believe I was talking to this within a couple of times. I just think it's important that whoever you have an outright to reach out to your local independent center, establish a relationship with them, because you know, questions around the issues we're talking about today come up all the time, and in the best sense, I agree. Not the blog myself, but independent sense, great resources, and we do not know the answer, we can find the answer out for you. So I just think it's important to establish a working relationship with your local independent center.
Yeah, that's good to know. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. I did see, I hope you're able to take a look at the chat, because there were a lot of thank yous to you three for the information that you provided, and a lot of people are looking forward to implementing some of your suggestions. So thank you so much for your hard work on this.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It was great. We learned so much and had a ball, and the libraries rock, all of them. So thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.